Welcome to another edition of Inside the Headset. The Palestine High School head football coach, Kyle Ralph. I am the Palestine special teams coordinator, wide receiver coach, Wes Anderson. And coach, getting ready to start a new game today, and one I think we're both pretty excited about, and I think one our fans are excited about because it probably should be the freshest in their memory, the Valparaiso State Championship game from this most recent year. So, obviously your third state championship here in your fourth appearance, and a really big game against a very, very quality opponent.
Yeah, one of the better teams that we have certainly played since I've been here. The interesting part about a lot of this was the IHSAA had put out a kind of the realignment and stuff like that, and then I guess right at the start of summer, somewhere around then, there was a little bit of buzz and some rumor that they were actually going to go back and then retroactively change those alignments that they had already created, which is something that they said that they weren't going to do initially, and then they did it anyway. And so Valpo actually was a 6A school that then dropped down into 5A as a result of that midsummer realignment that happened. And one of the other things that actually had happened, the game we watched a couple of days ago, Cathedral went from, I believe it was 4A, and they went back up into 5A as well. So that brought two really, really good teams back into 5A last year. And boy, it made 5A, I think, about as competitive as it's ever been from top to bottom at that point. You were looking at a bunch of really, really good football teams there. And so, again, here we are. We end up being the smallest public school in 5A. And at this time, the only public school that's affected by the success factor in 5A. East had moved to 6A. And now we're going to essentially have to go in the state championship here and play a school that really should have been in 6A, that is the largest school in the entire division. So, and they've had a bunch of really good years up there with Coach Marshall in a row, and he'd gotten that program turned around and really going. And the year before this, with mostly the same team, they had just taken Carmel, who is the largest school in the entire state. They had just taken Carmel to the wire. Really.
Yeah, they played really well in that semi-state game in 18 against Carmel. Yeah, they really did.
Yeah, this is a huge game for a lot of reasons here, and one of them, quite frankly, was almost a little bit of a David versus Goliath type thing, where a lot of people, it's a school of 1175 taking on a school of over 2,000. It was a huge challenge. The resources they had, the depth they had, the size of player they had, the quality of playoff opponent that these kids had been used to, having played in 6A then for so long. It really just made it a spectacular a game as far as opponent and preparation and stuff were concerned. So, obviously for a state championship, a huge win for our program and a big moment for a lot of people. There are some real – I think this game was a little bit of what I thought it would be, just kind of a back-and-forth slugfest of really, really solid football, followed by some of our key players making some really – all-time great Hallmark Dragon plays. And, boy, it was a great week. This senior class now, you've watched these guys, battle that Zionsville game when these seniors were juniors. You've watched the Decatur game when these seniors were juniors. You've seen the Center Grove game when they're seniors. And, boy, these guys were just a great group. And the one thing that that I do remember from when this thing was all over with and said and done is, someone said, Coach, in the post game stuff, Coach, you're really emotional after this one. Is this state championship mean more to you than the other ones? You're a little emotional with all this. And I said, I mean, it means a lot because we just won it. It doesn't mean that it's more important than the other ones. I said, but it's always hard to say goodbye to the kids. And I remember making the comment after this one was such a great senior group and kids that, I mean, boy, oh boy, did they just empty the tank in this game here to finish the job. I told him, I said, I'm just thankful we won because I'm beat up inside saying goodbye to these kids, knowing that I'm never going to coach them again. And I said, boy, if we'd have lost this game, I said, I'd have been inconsolable out here. So there was a lot of emotion that went into this and climbing the mountain to go back to back. But, understanding in the kind of like coach speak world that, I mean, you really just beat a team that you don't have much right beating, realistically. I think to me was something that makes this tremendously memorable for myself and the staff and the kids. Going back to back in 5A as the smallest school out there, and for the fans, it is a major, major point of pride in our community to take on, schools the size that we take on. But boy, when you take on the biggest one out there and beat them, it's a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse
Bless
me.
you. Well, let's go ahead and get this rolling here. Let me get you off the screen here while you're having a sneeze fit.
Yeah, well, the weather here in Indiana is not doing me any favors right now. So, but this is live. This is real. This is what happens.
So I do want to take a little time and talk about a couple special teams that we haven't really talked about. And I'm selfishly going to do that because we really had a nice night across the board on the special teams in this game. But a couple questions I get along the way as we go here, because we kind of gloss over some of the special teams in this. And
you're right, though. This may be one of our best special teams nights that we have ever had across the board. I think you're right.
Yeah.
About that. That was huge in this game. So, yeah.
I mean,
I think you're dead on.
Even without, some of our hallmark special team performances are kick return touchdowns, block a punt, force a fumble. And we didn't do any of that in this game, but across the board, just really pretty solid. So I want to talk for a second here about our kick return and a little tweak that we made here. I think one of the things that's becoming more common now is for some teams to kind of put the ball on the hash, kick the ball down that hash, and then put their best players here into the boundary and make you make decisions about how you're going to block them. So we did. We actually, a couple of decisions that we made here is these are large twins here, Cade and Riker. And typically Riker plays here and Cade plays here, a little bigger body to help us block in the middle. We flipped those guys to put Cade on this kid who's one of their best linebackers. And I don't remember. I think he probably made 25-30% of the tackles on this team in the charting we did. And then the kid next to him had probably another 20 or 25% of those tackles. So our adjustment, usually on our kick return team, this back line here is Max and Hook and Charlie Spiegel. Usually those guys kind of come together here in the middle, and they're going to just kind of be a lead block double team here. We took the double team out for this week, and I put Max on that number 2 kid by himself, and then Charlie kind of becomes just a single lead blocker here up the middle. So that was a little adjustment we made to kind of try to get our best kids on their best kids, and honestly really successful. We popped them all every single time they kicked to us until they finally just quit doing it. So
yeah, we had a couple of really nice returns here. Luke really hit this pretty well.
So good field position to start. This was a nice adjustment. We had seen it 2 or 3 times this year. This was a little bit easier, honestly, because he always kicked from this hash. So the week before this, in the semi-state game against Wilmington South, they did the same thing, but they would kick from either hash, and they would flip the whole personnel group over. So if they kick from this hash, these 4 dudes were here. But if they kick from this hash, these 4 guys were here, which made it a little more challenging. And we pretty much had 2 separate returns in this game, which is something in the Bloomington South game, which is something I really hate to do, just from a time management perspective. But so it was, at least we had some experience with it, the week before we came into this game. So as always, once we get started here, let's talk about their defense, and I mean some dudes in here that are just a major problem for us.
Yeah, this is again one of the better defenses that we've played, just in regards to, one, their talent level, 2, they're well coached as well, and then 3, or they really present some issues with how they play defense in regards to how we try to run our offense. So, you can tell, boy, there's some big boys up there. You don't really got to have great eyesight to see that there's a couple of young men wearing green and black that are big boys. And they're going to be even bigger here in a second when you see their offense. But, the thing when we evaluated them, they have 2 Division I defensive ends, one of which is a national level 2021 Power 5 kid. I mean, he had offers from Ohio State, Michigan, the whole 9 yards. I mean,
this is him up here.
Yeah.
Jones kid.
Yeah. I mean, he had offers from literally everybody that plays the game of American football, essentially. 6'5" and some change. I think he was 260 pounds or something like that, 50, 60 pounds. Really mobile, very athletic kid, as you would expect with a kid that's a national level recruit like that, especially at such a young age. I mean, he's really, really good. And, the biggest thing is he's a powerhouse too. At that size, he really on tape had just overwhelmed everybody. And so, along with the fact that he's obviously athletically gifted, he really plays well with his hands and gets his hands inside well, and just, I mean, if you're not physically strong enough to be able to handle that, he just mauled people on the tape and stuff that we had gotten from them. So he's obviously a major problem, and I'll talk more about kind of the way we go about this in a second here. But on the opposite side, you've got a kid who's a little bit smaller, who's also a Division I recruit. I think that technically the other kid, I think his last name was Downing, is about as technically solid of a defensive lineman as we've played against. Really, really good with his hands.
Yeah.
Just plays angles and edges exceptionally well, which, again, he's a 2021 kid. So for a younger kid, really just a tremendous player, and technically very strong. And so you've got those 2 kids on the bookends. In the middle, you've got, really one of the harder things to deal with, quite honestly, and people don't really think like this, but I'm telling you, having played the position, this is not easy. They've got one kid who's bigger and thicker that you can see down there at kind of the 2-eye. And they've got another kid who is smaller and really fast. And the constant adjustment to those 2 things, play in and play out, you think, well, Coach, how hard is it? Like, how hard is it to look up and see, well, this guy's the bigger kid and this guy's the faster kid? It really is tough because there's not consistency in what you're blocking. And so they've got a really nice kind of pairing on the inside, and then behind all that, they're protecting and hiding a Division I Mike linebacker. So that's also a major problem. He's been hurt most of the year. He's about a 230-pound Mike linebacker. He'd been hurt a good portion of the year. I had talked to Coach Marshall actually in the week leading up to this stuff, and I think he had dislocated his ankle early in the season, and then came back and played late in the season. And boy, was he a shot in the arm for their defense. Just having that kid back and his presence in there. And then the other two outside linebackers, again, they're just really good football players. You know, they weren't major high level recruits, so to speak, but you know, very much remind us of us a little bit, where they've got a lot of really good players standing out there. And then they take really what we had thought was kind of their best hybrid kid, their outside linebacker, defensive back, and then what they're going to do is actually what we thought they would do. So I think in the big picture, outside of personnel, that is probably what helped us the most. We had gathered a lot of information and some of the things that had kind of gone on, you know, as the week transpired, and some of the comments and stuff that were made. We felt like we had a really good idea of what they were going to try to do to us to stop us. And so we had narrowed those things down, and this was one of the possibilities. It's one that we practiced a pretty fair amount. And again, if you've been watching the tape, it's not unlike what, you know, Michigan City tried to do to us. It's not unlike what Center Grove had done to us in this particular season earlier on. They're going to essentially play cover one here and leave that kind of rover hybrid linebacker kid to be responsible for wherever he feels the ball has gone. And it was a huge positive for us, because we felt like the best matchup that we had was our receivers on their defensive backs. And that was where we really felt our advantage lied in this game. And we're going to take advantage of that really early on here, quite honestly, until Lincoln goes down and gets hurt. But we really felt like if they chose to play cover one or some kind of a press cover zero type deal, that we had a major advantage in the passing game. And we had a great week of practice throwing the ball. Lincoln was really on point, and our receivers were synced up with him really well. You know, unfortunately, Lincoln gets hurt here in the first quarter, and we lose him for then the rest of the game. I think early second, then he goes down eventually after the injury. He gets kind of hurt a second time, and that's it for him for the night. But you know, everything about this defense was essentially, people don't want to challenge the two Division I kids, and they kind of played afraid of them, to be honest. So that played into Valpo's hands, because everything essentially got funneled inside, and you just play right into the heart of their defense because you're terrified of the two big boys on the edges. So I thought we had the personnel and the ability to do the opposite of that, and so we actually designed a lot of our offense this week to attack those two kids and try to get outside of them. So what people had done is try to get outside of them by trying to run around them. Well, those two kids are too good for that. It'd be like trying to run around Kyle for us. It just it's not going to happen. You know, it's not going to happen often, at least. You might get him once or twice, but you're not going to do that successfully 7 or 8 times. So we come up with a speed option play you're going to see here, and we do some wildcat stuff to get to it based on evaluation, which I'll talk about later. But our whole thing was, we're going to try to use their strength against them. We're going to pound the ball in the middle when we have to and do some things. But we had a couple things in the game plan this week to come after those two kids and essentially make their other players make plays and not let the Division I kids do everything for them. You know, and again, overall, we do a really nice job of it here. But in a game like this, I mean, you're going to see, you know, in a game like this, you're going to have some struggles and some difficulties, and that's just part of it. When you play against a really well-coached team that's as talented as these guys are, you're going to run into problems from time to time trying to move the football. But yeah, I mean, this was a tough game to plan for, you know, with the talent level of these kids, and again, how well coached they were. Their technique was really strong, and yeah, it's what a state championship should be, I suppose.
Yeah. So we're going to start with a little boot pass here in the opener, and Maxon does a really nice job here, nice catch and run.
Yeah, I mean, most games we start off with a run. Again, we really felt like our pass, and these boots are to slow those defensive ends down as well. So that's part of the plan. You're going to see us run these quite a bit here. But the first play, we motioned him across, and that was really just to see if they were going to be playing cover 0 or cover 1 right out of the gate, which we get that information. I mean, it's not hard to look at their structure and see what they're doing here, but we get the information we want. We kind of run a little bit of a delay, get that guy to trigger, and then we throw this little boot out to Max in the flat and get a really nice gainer on the first play of the night. So, normally, like we've talked about, we're kind of a comfort zone team here. But passing was a big part of our plan this week, and we really felt like this was going to be a great play for us all night long. And like I said, we're going to hit this quite a few times throughout the course of the night here.
What you really got here is you kind of talk a little bit about the structure and idea, and what you really got here is basically cover 1. He's got him. He's got him. He's got him.
Yeah, I guess I probably should explain that. Cover 1, for people that maybe aren't football fans, cover 1 essentially means that there's going to be one high safety in the middle who's essentially a free player, and the other defensive backs are going to be playing man-to-man on the eligible receivers.
Mm-hmm. So, and like you said, I think one of the options that we expected, and you'll see wherever we put Max, and they really like to switch. Wherever we put Max, and this kid went for the most part. And if we put Max out here at number 2, they would bump and they would shift, and they wanted this kid on hook for most of the night. And like you said, I think the main advantage here is we felt like the Jimmies and Joes out here were better than their Jimmies and Joes out here, and you're going to see that kind of come to fruition here in a second on how we score on this first drive.
Again, running on these guys, I can't remember the total, but they were another team that had been holding teams to, my God, under 50 yards rushing and stuff. One of the films that we got in the trade, I almost can't. I couldn't even remember the team even getting a first down on the ground. I mean, they had just suffocated people, really the entire season for the most part, and again, a lot of it was teams were just so unwilling to challenge those 2 big kids or find ways to challenge those 2 big kids. And we've got a really good one here, but Charlie gets tripped. We've got a really good play here, and Charlie gets tripped on our wing trap play. But good pull here by Lincoln. Really nice job by Matt. Again, reading these guys. This, again, is something that a couple teams had done to them, that we had seen. They kind of read these defensive ends, and one of the things that we'd evaluated that's really difficult is when you got 2 kids that are so big and so athletic like this, you can see he doesn't crash and he doesn't come up the field. He attacks the mesh point. And that was something we had to work with our scout team guys on all week long, is they attack the mesh point, and they really force a decision out of your quarterback. And when those kids are so big and so fast, you can really be wrong. You can see he's almost trying to play 2 players here. And so he doesn't really get a clean tackle on Charlie, but he can't play Lincoln. And I'll say this, our scout team did a exceptional job this week of trying to replicate, what these guys could do and what they had. And that was a big payoff for us in this.
So here's a little different look. Kind of a 50 here. They kind of reduce down. Here's the 7. Here's 7, the Dingman kid. Here's 11, the Jones kid, the 2 defensive ends. They take the smaller interior alignment and kind of stand them out here. It's almost a 9 technique out here.
It should look relatively familiar for those of you who have been watching this series here, because all this is essentially 1 player short of what Center Grove had done to us that had given us trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that game was on YouTube. I wouldn't be surprised if they just went ahead and accessed it and looked it up. But, I mean, this is not something we had practiced, but it's not out of the realm of something that we would have expected here. They're just staying within their kind of cover one philosophy, but playing essentially a 5-1 bear front here to us to pretty much just say you're not running inside zone. So we always – the one thing about this in our offense, and it's actually funny because I read – someone tweeted this out yesterday, and it was a really great tweet. I should have retweeted it as a matter of fact, but it went along with a lot of things I've said in this series here and something I'm going to kind of repeat. But the tweet essentially was, you know, a lot of the great offensive quote-unquote schemes and stuff are very simple, and then what coaches do is build answers within the simplicity. And I've spoken a lot about this. You know, what we do is not flashy or, quite frankly, very exciting at times, but it wins games, and that's what's important. You know, you see a lot of these guys that are trying to sell you things that got, you know, they've got 100 different plays, and it's like, yeah, but only 3 of them really are any good. And there's not answers to stuff. The answer is, well, let's just call a totally different play here. So the beauty of what we do is because we keep things so simplistic for our kids, we have a lot of answers now built into the system for problems that teams have given us over the years. And this is one of them. If our quarterbacks, essentially from the time they get to the high school and start learning some more of the process, because we run this offense in the junior high as well, and even some of our 6th grade teams have run it in the youth league. But if teams jump into like a bear front or some kind of like a double A front as well, you know, some people call them all different things, double eagle, double A,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this one's a bear. People got different names for everything. We have, because this is an inside zone killer, and that's what I understand as, you know, as an offensive lineman, as a coach. You know, we run inside zone so well. Well, every team that we play that is just going to pretty much say you're not doing this against us is going to carry a bear package. And so while we may not have explicitly practiced this throughout the week per se, this is something that we have seen throughout every season, every year I've been here. And we always have an auto check built in the event that teams want to have a bear package against us, that we have a couple of checks that we can make to get us into a better play. And this is one of them. So Lincoln makes his choice here and does a great job getting us out of the play that we called and into this particular play. And so we've got a lot of answers built in that make things easy for our kids and put us in the best play possible on the field. So another really good job by our kids here.
Yep. This, you know, his alignment right here, as this drive's going, you know, I remember you and I, you know, I'm a wide receiver coach, so I won't say I'm always hollering to throw the ball, but, you know, I'm always looking at matchups and alignments and thinking about, you know, how to get the ball to our kids. And when I saw him kind of playing, he's inside the inside eye.
Yeah.
You know, this is when you and I kind of started talking about, listen, we got to throw the ball down here. We got to find a way to get Blake through here, because I knew he could not run with Blake just in a pure speed perspective. Yeah. And if he's going to play this technique, anything outside release for Blake, there's no way this kid can get hands on him. So,
this was our biggest. Yeah, again, like this was our big. Our 4 receivers, in our opinion, were better than the 4 defensive backs that could have covered them. Mm-hmm. And we were really hoping they were going to play man to man, because that made that issue even larger for them. And again, unfortunately, Lincoln goes down, and Eric had struggled a little bit, you know, to be able to throw the ball, and that hurts. But yeah, I mean, this was. I remember at the start of the game, they came out the first couple of plays in the headsets. It was like, all right, we're gonna be great, because this is exactly what we wanted out of them, and we got it. And I mean, we were hoping for cover 1 or cover 0. I mean, really. Mm-hmm. So
this is it, right?
No, it's coming up here in a couple
next one. the next one. But the thing I kind of want our fans to understand is how these conversations evolve as a drive goes on. It isn't like we get to the 22-yard line and we go, okay, you know what? Maybe let's call hitch and go. These are conversations that happen as this drive moves, and as we get more information each play in this first drive about what's happening, we know that we've got that when we need it.
The other thing too, and it's not like I'm trying to be negative or anything, but that's our job as coordinators, is to figure out where our mismatches are and come after them. And the great part about Blake, especially, is their DBs were not very tall. I think the one kid was a pretty good sized kid, but we've got Eric out there right now who's 6'3", and that was a big problem for them because he's a great possession receiver, can go up and get the ball. And then Riker was, in our evaluation, significantly faster than the guys who could cover him. And then Blake was bigger and faster. And they also probably put one of their DBs that had struggled the most out there with him. So, those are the things that we're looking for when you figure out, obviously, right out of the gate that they're going to play this kind of cover one structure, multi-front deal. Well, what are the matchups that we have? And then how can we come after that stuff? So, that's our job as coaches. And it's not picking on players. Like I said, Valpo, I've got an unbelievable amount of respect for them. The way they run their program and the way that Coach Marshall has turned that program around into what it's become. They are rocking and rolling, but we just felt like personnel-wise, their D-line was going to give us some trouble. Now, the bonus is we had Kyle and Matt to help neutralize their two Division I kids. That certainly helps us a lot here, but our advantage was the perimeter in this game, for sure. So we're just going to make sure essentially that kid is where we want him to be. So we kind of call a couple of plays. If you notice there, we kind of leave Blake back there, and that kid essentially is giving us a pretty consistent alignment. So get down into striking distance here and come after him on a hitch and go. We execute this really, really well and run right by him for a wide open touchdown. So great execution on that drive. Kids are into it. A lot of great checks by the quarterback to get us into the right plays. We've got a little bit of using Charlie as a decoy some early on, and Lincoln's carrying the football. Passing game is really, really sharp right now, and this is a lightning quick opening drive for 7 here, and great way to start a game. Obviously, but everything's kind of falling into place. Crop comes in, and boy, is he just absolutely lights out this game too.
What a night for him! Yeah. What a night for him!
He has
Go ahead.
Good practices. The one thing too that I think is really cool. I know I've said thanks for this before, but I can't stress enough how great the Colts are with this particular week and what they do for Indiana high school football. So each team gets an hour window a week. I know we've talked about this, but to go down there and practice, because you'd mentioned it, and we use that for all special teams, and we've done that really since I've been here. When we made the championship in 2014, that practice is essentially an all special teams practice with a little bit of fun for some of the the kids and stuff as well, and just enjoy the day and enjoy the process of that day. And state championship week's supposed to be special. There's business to handle, but there's a lot of things that we do for the kids that make it memorable. But the one thing I do remember is Alex, I think when we went down there, had struggled a little bit early on, just kind of adjusting. But then by the end of that special teams period, he was really pure in that practice. And then in pregame, again, you've talked about a limited time, so I won't go to it. But you even kind of mentioned to me like he's really, he's really struggling right now, and he struggled in pregame. And I was like, really? Because my God, he had a great practice, and you said he's just a little bit off right now. And I'll tell you what, boy, he pulled it together, and man alive, did he have a spectacular night. That was huge. And some of that warm up stuff is again, everything's rushed. Everybody's out of their
Mhm.
routine, and you've got to somehow stay on that routine as best you can. And my God, for kickers, who are absolute creatures of habit, those are tough. So yeah, I remember
You know
that.
the
All right, well, we're going to need him, so he better figure it out in a hurry. And boy, did he ever.
here's the other thing about this particular situation. You talked about it when we did a Decatur game, and what the warm up process is. You go in, you get dressed, the receivers come out. They've got like some big areas under the stadium, like some big kind of like convention center room type setups down there, and those guys can go in there and stretch and warm up and throw a little bit, and you kind of manage the time. But there's absolutely no place to kick down there.
No. Yeah,
So
he essentially kicks the ball against the concrete wall.
right. So he gets whatever time we get out there, which if I remember right, I think we got like 25 minutes.
Yeah, we got about 20 this game. They added some time on for us there because we were behind. But yeah, we ended up getting about. They try to give you 20, and again, sometimes it ends up being that, sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, it's very regimented. So
right,
if you're going to go in the locker room, which we do, you've got to get back in the locker room and back out and be in the tunnel by the time that your team video comes on. And we were the first team video, so we really only had about a 10 to 12 minute warm up because we had to go back in and talk to the team and then break down and then be back into the tunnel by the 5-minute mark. So we had even less.
So what our kickers and punters do in a normal warm up in about 45 minutes, in this case, is reduced to 10, and that's really difficult. So
yeah.
Both times we've been down there, the warm-ups haven't been great, and I'm sure it's because they feel pressured and they feel rushed and they feel hurried and they want to make sure they get a bunch of kicks in. They're not focusing on technique, and it's an easy thing to do. So I do want to talk for a minute here about our kickoff team, because that's a question I get a little bit, and as we've done this series, but it's also a question that I get kind of in general in the coaching circle about kind of what the rhyme or reason is to our kickoff team, because we do things, I think, pretty unique. I think it's actually kind of one of the most unique things and one of the best things that we do on the special teams. So here's how we do this. So these 7 guys here that are 4 yards off the ball are what I call kind of normal players, and that they all have a lane assignment as a normal kickoff team would. But these other 3, in this case, that's Tyler Prangy, that's Avon Jones, and there's Max and Hook there. Those 3 guys have full authority to do whatever they want. They can line up wherever they want. They can run wherever they want. They don't have a lane. It's their objective to go find the football. And over the course of the game, these 3 guys will change their alignments. They'll move based on what is happening in front of them. And I give these 3 guys basically 2 rules. I call these 3 guys hitmen. And I give them 2 rules. And rule number 1 is don't get blocked by a frontline player. And, they get a copy of the kick return that we expect them to run. They study it. They know, in this particular week, this is the big defensive end, the Jones kid that's going to IU. He was supposed to block Richie based on how the return was drawn up. So Tyler's going to start here, and Tyler's going to do this.
Real quick too, from just a philosophy perspective, as a side note to that, and you said that, I was going to say on the opening kickoff, but I just kind of slipped my mind. This was another thing where, again, as a head coach, when I evaluate all the film and watch it, like I said, I've got a lot of respect for Coach Marshall and the program he's running up there. But this was one of the very few teams that we have ever played, especially a team this size, where when we turned the film on, it was like, oh boy, okay, they're all out there. I mean, every single starter, the Division I kids, the Division II kids, the really good players, the young guys that are just exceptional effort players. I mean, they're all out there on special teams. And that's when I was like, all right, it's not to say that that's something that makes or breaks it. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people, what I'm going to say, like, well, who cares what your opinion of them is? But when I watch the film and I break down, everything another team does, and I'm kind of looking at what their philosophy is and how this is going to go, there is a lot of respect for a coach that he's going to put the best players on the field at all times. And especially the school this size where their roster had, my God, 120 kids on it. And you look out there and Cooper Jones is pretty much on every single special team except for kickoff. I mean, they're invested. And to me, that was something where, this is going to be a great battle, because it wasn't like normally special teams for us, because we play our best players on it. Normally that is a phase that we're going to win it. We know we're going to win it. Now we've got to win one of the other two. I remember talking to you like this was one of the very few teams that when you walked out there, it was going to be stud on stud every single play of this game, whether it was offense, defense, or special teams. And I thought that was just something really exceptional, for a school that size to not just say, well, we've got 120 kids. Let's keep all the really good players fresh and we'll put the JV kids on special teams. Like, they're making you win that phase of the game as well, because they're going to try to win all three of them themselves. So it was a great battle. This was a wonderful special teams night for us, and I think our kids executed at an extremely high level, especially considering that you're going against elite special teams as well. So that's worth noting for sure.
Yeah. So two rules here for these three hitmen guys here. One is don't get blocked by a frontline player. So your alignment, typically the way most teams do this, if they run what's called a man return, is that they're literally going to block the same guy every time. And in our world, when we're on kick return, we tell our kids they literally count. This is 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. And, this kid always has number 5, for instance. So you always block 5. So our guys know, if he's supposed to block 5, well, I better not be number 5. I better not be here. And then the other rule for these three guys is if there's a double team somewhere in this kick return, you need to align to not be the guy that gets double teamed. Those are the two rules. Don't do that. And then we'll adjust as the game goes on. So I think this is one of the best examples in the 2 years that we've run this kickoff, one of the best examples of how our kids adjust from kick to kick. And I'll tell you what, I mean, Maxon Hook is a great player, never came off the field for us. He did everything for us. But I think where we will miss him most is probably on this team. He made almost 70% of our tackles on this team in 2019. 70%. Because he was smart enough to understand this scheme stuff and understand where to align. So we'll talk about this over the two parts of this, and every time we kick off, I'll kind of talk a little bit about our adjustments that we make here. One of the things I'll note is that they kind of changed the return on us here. So I told Tyler, you can't get blocked by a frontline player. You especially can't get blocked by this kid, and he blocks him. They changed the return, and they block him. So we'll talk the next time we kick about kind of some of the adjustments that we make. Because Maxon aligned where he aligned, here he comes, and he's going to get a free run right to the wedge. Him and Brody and Cade, all three, get a free run right to the wedge. And Avon comes in and cleans the thing up. So we'll kind of talk about some of the strategy involved in that as we go on, but it's really been pretty successful for us. So let's move to their offense, which again, a number of matchup problems here. A really good quarterback. This offensive line is just mammoth, and I'll tell you what, this kid here, the slot, the Osorio kid, for my money, might be the best receiver we saw the whole year, in my opinion.
Yeah, their offense again was pretty unique in the fact that they're a little bit like us, where they run a lot of stuff with a wing, and that kid was like a 240 or 45 pound like wing. So essentially, he's really a fullback. He did a little bit in the passing game for them, but they're pretty much using him as a fullback is what that kid becomes. And then, like you said, in front of them, I mean, their offensive line average, I'm pretty sure was over 300 pounds or just a shade under it. I think the left tackle is going to play Division II, I want to say, maybe. I can't remember where.
I think you're right.
Where Coach said he ended up going, but he's 335 pounds and 6'6". And then the right tackle is a major Power 5 prospect that's 6'5" and 315 or 330 or something like that. The one guard was over 300, and I mean, they were just mammoth. And the good part about that, we really felt like conditioning wise, it was going to be a struggle. You know, like I've mentioned before, the weather in Indiana during playoffs is really brutal and usually really cold. The area these guys come from up in the region is even colder than where we're from. You know, they're up there by the lakes and stuff. So going from, you know, teens and 20s into 75 and hot is difficult. So, you know, their guys in some of their longer games they had to play in had really struggled a little bit later in games to kind of dominate the way that they probably should have. And we felt like a lot of that was conditioning. So this was kind of a Center Grove type scenario here where we had talked to the boys about, look, you know, early in drives, early in games, when these guys are fresh, they are going to lean and lean and lean on us. And I guarantee part of their plan was to essentially wear us down with their size. You know, we've got, you know, you think about, and Kyle is a spectacular player for us. You don't go to Michigan State because you're mediocre. You know, he is really good. And he's 6'4" and about 245 or 50 pounds. And, you know, on offense for us, he's blocking a 260-pound national level recruit or a 250-pound Division I recruit. And then when he flips over to go play defense for us, he is now having to withstand the pressure of a 6'5", 320-plus pound Division I Power 5 recruit or a 6'6", 335-pound Division II recruit. And that takes it out of you. So that was one of our major concerns here was, you know, essentially how long can our conditioning hold up in this environment when they have just got such a massive size advantage and can really put pressure on us. And Matt Brown, by the way, is in the same situation. He's just 20 pounds lighter than Kyle. I mean, he's literally blocking the same people every play. He just doesn't have Kyle's frame. And so that was big for us. You know, being able to withstand the punishment these guys usually dole out, because they'll go from what you see here that's kind of a quote-unquote spread formation, and then at random or when things didn't go very well or short yardage or whatever, they want to seal the game and waste clock. They go into a single wing heavy package and just ram the ball right down your throat.
Yeah, we'll
on
see
top
that
of that, yeah, on top of that, you would think, okay, with an offensive line that big, how efficient can they be throwing the ball? Well, their quarterback's 6'6" and 200-something pounds, so he can see over everybody. And their receivers were all talented kids. Like you said, the slot there, number 13, is a little bit smaller kid, but boy, oh boy, he ran great routes. Really, really talented kid, quick, very quick. And he was kind of their main threat when they needed yards and stuff. So, and then the running back was a junior who was actually a little bit like the Cathedral kid that had given us some problems.
Yeah.
That was kind of a pounder, but had just enough quickness to be able to find some of those creases in there, you know. But he really had relied on just kind of slamming the ball up in the back of the offensive line and then just using his strength to break through the rest of it. And he'd had a great season up to this point. So the thing that helped us, like I said, I think the conditioning was big. The other thing, evaluation-wise, their quarterback had really been held to low percent on completion rate, and we felt like, you know, they don't want to throw the ball much. I mean, they were similar to us in that regard, that they're going to let the offensive line, that tailback, do work and win games. So we felt like if we could move and give that quarterback some muddy reads to look at, he would make mistakes. And I'm going to tell you right now, we missed some golden opportunities. We really should have about 4 interceptions in this game. We only get 1.
It's a big one, though.
A huge one, huge. But we do a great job with that, you know, and we do hold him to a really low percent completion, which is what we thought we could do. But the other thing that helped then is we felt like we had some really nice tendencies on them, and that was a big part of this. And I remember we were really, really, really well prepared in that aspect of the game to kind of know what play was coming and where it was going. And, you know, again, when you're talking about a team that's as talented as they are, that's kind of our mental edge there. You know, we could probably narrow it down on the field to 2 to 3 different plays that our kids could be mentally prepared. Okay, here's what they're in. This is what they do. And this is probably what's coming. That helped us a lot.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if I've ever watched so much film in my life than I did this week. I mean, it just, you know, that they had a couple of their games were on YouTube, and, you know, I'm in there, you know, I'm watching YouTube games and charting, and I mean, what a grind this week was just to try to get to those tendencies. It makes a huge difference, but it is also a very time-consuming task
Yeah, you know, that's a
to
good
get to
point.
those things.
I think for a lot of people, you know, they see the championships and stuff, and this is just kind of a credit to the staff, but also a comment on the state of coaching and stuff. But I think a lot of people see the championships and like, oh man, that's so great, you know, and God, I want to be that. I want to be them, or you know, I want to do that. And it's like, you know, the hard part about all this is you've now, you know, in Indiana, because you get to do stuff in the summer, you've really been coaching football, and we did spring ball stuff last year. You've been coaching football since April,
Mm-hmm.
and we do a good job of balancing it out so we don't burn the kids out and try to not burn the coaches out. But, you know, to your comment, I think a lot of people don't realize that each stage that you make it in this process, it just gets harder and harder, and the time consumption gets higher and higher and higher. You know, I remember one person that made a comment like, I just, you know, they looked at the huddle thing and they said, I just don't get how, you know, how you watch so many hours worth of film. And it's like, well, that's what I have to do. I mean, that's what it takes. You know, it's not like you get to the state championship game and it's like, all right, we made it. Let's pump the brakes here. I mean, every round in the playoffs that you further, the task at hand is more difficult, and the challenge, you know, essentially gets harder and harder each week. The stakes are higher, and the preparedness level has to go up. And so, yeah, I mean, it's my weekend routine is essentially on Saturday and Sunday. I get up at about 4:15 in the morning, and I'll start watching film, and that process will go. On Saturdays, a little bit of like my kind of day off where I'll get up that early, watch the film, prepare, break down the game from the night before as well. We meet with the kids, we do film, and then I'll come home. Oh, I'll go coach my son in the youth football, and then I'll come home and watch college football pretty much all day. But then I'll have a good base layer. But then Sunday, it's 4:15 in the morning pretty much till I go to bed that night. And then you're watching it throughout the week as well. So it's not uncommon to put in, you know, for this game, I would say it was not out of the realm of possible that I probably had watched, you know, 18, 20
Yep.
hours of film by the end of the week.
Yep. So I want to talk real quickly about this because we touched on this, but this in the Zionsville game about some of our alignments to 3x1. But here's a really good example of us kind of showing something and then doing something different. So this is our quarter half look here with Maxon in the flat, but then you're going to see us kind of at the last second, we're going to flip and rotate to kind of our cover 2 look here, where you'll see him come down. Now Brody's going to play deep half over here, and now Maxon's going to walk up and be mainly run support in this, but he's also kind of got that hook curl seam area like we talked about. So, you know, I think we talked about this, but I think this is a good example of us, and we talked some about the movement in one of these other episodes. I think it was in the Center Grove game that we talked a little bit about how our kids move, and show different pictures and things. So I think it's a really good example of us showing that one secondary structure, and then right before the quarterback kind of looks out here, gets his picture, and then we change everything that we're doing out here and show him a different look.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah,
we
so
get a post right by us, but
this was one of those moments where you never really know how your kids are going to react to the stage of the game. And while you just said we've got all these different things going on here that are really good, this was actually one of the things that we had I mean, very, very, very explicitly talked to our defensive backs about. So the kid at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see Canfield comes up and just boxes him in essentially at the bottom to play a little bit more of a hard cover 2 type look. I understand the check that we've made here, but this was also something we had done all week and done really well. The kid at the bottom of the screen was their home run threat. So the Osorio kid was a little bit more of an underneath type guy and would work some of those underneath or intermediate type routes. And I mean, it was almost like a little Wes Welker in there. I mean, he just killed people on those things. And he could also go vertical with his speed, but the kid at the bottom was their deep route runner. And so we really had said, look, anytime you draw him, you have got to back away from him because he doesn't run intermediate routes. He's running, I think it's number 15.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he did essentially was deep balls, and they would just launch it to him. And Luke makes a critical error right out of the gate here, and I'm actually standing right down here about the 40-yard line and scream out to him after this play. I just kind of pointed to my head and was just reminding him, like, you got to think, like, stay, and I told him, I kind of put my hands and pushed my hands and said, you've got to back away from him. And he nodded his head because he immediately, not because he got beat here, but he immediately knew he had screwed up on a simple personnel assignment. And, after this, we're fine, but this could have hurt. I mean, bad. Obviously here really early in the game, we just make a mental error. And thankfully we don't pay for it.
Kind of get a little bit of a.
Here's the other thing: if you watch this play too, as we evaluated their offense and stuff, I mean, really think about this statistic. Okay, we're in game 14 now. It's week 15, but we're playing game 14. Okay, they had given up on the season 1 sack.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, people couldn't get to their quarterback, and they couldn't. As a matter of fact, I mean, they couldn't even pressure him. And that's against, some pretty daggone good football teams from up there in the region and stuff. They couldn't even get close to this kid. And we are a team that relies heavily on our speed and our pressure. And so, you look at that eval and it's like, they've played 13 games and they've given up 1 sack. I mean, that is really difficult to process. And then, again, we're a team that thrives on making negative plays through our blitz execution. Boy, that's a tough pill to swallow, knowing that you don't have a very high % chance based on their history to even get close to him. Now we do, we end up being able to get some really nice pressures, and we get a sack, and we get a couple of hits on him, which again makes him really uncomfortable because he had not experienced that all year long. But I'm telling you, this was a doggone good football team.
Here's the wing counter. Something we run quite a bit. I don't think we didn't run it in this game, but a play we really like that they had run that they run a lot. It was probably their second or third favorite run play. Which, I mean, why wouldn't you when you got a wing like that?
I mean, again, we're playing pretty good defense here, really, for the most part. I mean, honestly, most of their games they've scored by now. So,
a little bit interesting wrinkle here that they do on some of their zone stuff, and you saw it in the first play, and I kind of drew it up here. Sometimes they kind of run this like a fold version where he would do this and fold inside that tackle. They also run it just regular, where he's just basically going to kind of sit back here and seal an edge threat. which is what they do here. So, you know, just one more thing to prepare for, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of a tough spot for our linebacker, you know, here to the wing side, and that, you know, you kind of have to react to what's happening. You're either going to get, you know, 230 basically on a quote unquote ISO block right in your grill, or you're going to get 350, you know, climbing up here to try to get his big bear claws on you.
Yeah, pick your poison. It certainly presents a lot of problems. I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, on the hoof, boy, they were good looking. I mean, they were big kids too. I mean, my God, I know I kind of jokingly and I did not mean this in a negative way, and no one took it negatively at all. It's more of a compliment. But you know, I'd said in the pregame or the pre-week media interviews that we go down there and do. I mean, on film, I mean, their kids, they literally looked like refrigerators with arms and legs. I mean, they were just big, boxy, thick kids. I mean, they were there's some big human beings over there for sure.
There's our little pick stunt on the center, and we really get a good one here. And Avon's able to get around him on this down block.
That's a great play by Avon. Yeah, just setting himself up. For you guys that are, you know, big, heavy blitz people, we talk to our guys a lot about setting yourself up for success on a blitz. Don't just go walk, especially against these guys. Don't just go walk up in the gap you're going to go to, and then think you're just going to hard charge a 305-pound guard or 330-pound tackle. I mean, they're gonna murder you. You know, and I played the position. As an offensive lineman, I used to love it when people would come walk up where I could just grab them. I mean, it makes my job easier. I don't want to play out in space that much. So this is a really nice job by Avon of setting himself up for success and kind of acting like he's going to one side and then going to the other.
Post wheel, nice little combo that they really liked when they were in the wing stuff, and they had these two on the same side together. Post wheel, and then they'll run that little whip with the wing. That was one of their top pass combos. Luke does a nice job on that one.
Yeah, it's a really nice pass off to the bottom here.
Sorry, I can go back.
No, it's good. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
Good pass off to the bottom side of the screen by those two DBs.
Should have had one here.
This is one that is literally in our hands, and our momentum almost loses it for us here. Brody's got this ball in both of his hands, and yeah, we just can't finish it right here. But yeah, he's got that ball, and then his momentum takes him down. So missed opportunity there.
Wing counter again.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I know we've been going for a while already. I mean, there was so much. Like I said, there was so much that went into this game. I mean, the explanation and the build-up, we're probably not even halfway through explaining some of the stuff that we tried to get done this week.
Yeah.
And because you haven't even seen it yet, you know. But I mean, the amount of effort that goes into a game of this caliber, really one of the best games we've played in my 7 years, as far as just the level of the two teams. You know, there's a lot that goes into this. Another really nice pressure here.
Here it is again.
We're getting close to them.
I can't draw, but
we ran this route. We ran this route this week so many times. I think our defensive backs hated me by the end of the week, and we're covering it well. But oh my God, I made them cover wheels. All of them, every one of them had to cover wheels. I mean, every single day. It was. I think they hated me by the end of the week, to be honest.
Do a really good job in the back end here.
Same thing. You can see us getting some pressure on him. He gets really uneasy, and he makes a poor throw. We get a bat down too.
So they're going to punt here, and you know, we talked a lot last week about our you know, punt return philosophy and full-time punt block team and all that stuff. And you know, listen, we're still coming here, but 7 and 11, both the defensive ends. 7's here, 11's here. You know, let's be honest. You're not going to block a punt when the Space Jam Monstars are standing in the punt shield. Like, it's just not going to happen. We're still coming, and we still want to try to hurry them up. But I knew going into this one it was going to be really tough. It was going to be really, really tough.
God, their punter was really good too. Holy Moses!
Yeah, this is one of the linebackers, number 2. I pointed him out on their kickoff team too. He's a really good player, and he's going to nose down this thing about the 7-yard line here.
This punter had multiple on film that he had like inside the 5, nose down, checked up, and man alive, that kid was good.
I don't think the average football fan understands how hard this is. How hard it is to get this thing to nose down and die here and not, do that. I mean, he is supremely talented.
Wasn't it the one they had just played Dwanger and he kicked like 2 inside the 5? The one hit like the 2-yard line and he checked it up and it sat right down. I mean, it just played right down. It was unbelievable. And he punted about 50-something yards.
Yeah, he has a couple boomers in this game too. So really not in a great position here. We come out at our own 8.
Yeah. Well, we had a good drive to start off with here. We come back and really just want to get it out of the shadow of our own end zone, to be honest. The field position game was going to be big for both teams in this game with the type of offenses that we run. So the goal here is just to get it out of the shadow of our own goalposts, really. We miss one. Oh, we missed a touchdown here bad. This was one of the, I've talked about a couple of things that we've done with, what I've called like some one-off plays. This was not that. This was actually something that we felt we could consistently get them in this position where we were going to have this kind of this H post wide open anytime that we wanted it. And when they came out in man-to-man, it was even clearer.
Yeah.
I mean, if he hits Riker in stride here, this is 6 points again. And we missed this one, but we want to come back to it. And, if, as things happen, Lincoln gets hurt. We really can't. But that was a 6-pointer. They pick up a penalty here and move the chains essentially for us then.
So I want to talk about this for a second because nobody believes me when I tell people that we were going to use Eric at quarterback in this game anyway. And I'm going to point this out to you. Because there's our quarterback. Yeah. He's not hurt.
Not yet.
There's Eric. So this was in our plan, and we had a few options here, but honestly, we brought Eric back here to run the speed option, and I'll let you kind of talk about that here.
Yeah. So, again, I guess it kind of goes back to some of the amount of thought and time that goes into some of the things that we do. So we run speed option throughout the years from time to time, and some of our quarterbacks have been really, really good at it. Like Blake Luker the first year was really good at it. And then Alex Neely, who was the Mr. Football runner-up and the state champion quarterback of 14 and the runner-up quarterback from 15, who now coaches for me, he really didn't like it. He just didn't really have a good feel for it, and it was just a little bit unnatural to him, so we didn't do it much with him, really ever, to be honest. Gunner ran it a little bit, but not much, and then Zach actually was pretty efficient at it. Zach was actually not a bad speed option quarterback, and he really liked the play, so we ran it with Zach. So from year to year, we've got it in the playbook, but it really depends on the quarterback's comfort level as to whether or not we're going to do it and execute it. So at one point in this season, early on, I felt like the team we were going to play would be really susceptible to speed option from the gun. And we practiced it individual that week, and we did drills for it and all that stuff like that you're supposed to do, and really hammered it away with our quarterbacks and running backs and the pitch relationship, all that stuff. So Lincoln really struggled with it. And quite honestly, in talking to him throughout the week, did not like it. And so, as I've said many a time, my job as a coordinator is to put my ego to the side. And while I thought that was a great play that week, I never called it. And throughout the course of the week, in practice, this is just part about being an observant coach, Eric had actually run speed option really well in drills and then in live scenarios when we did them. He really had a knack for it and looked good at it. But again, he wasn't the starting quarterback. It really wasn't worth the time investment at that point. So we shelved it, and I never called it in that game. We didn't use it, okay? We come back a few weeks later, and against another opponent, I felt like, again, we had absolutely just shredded this team with speed option in a previous year, and I wanted to revisit it some. So I put it back in the plan. Let's work on it a little bit again, see if maybe a week's worth of practice has gotten Lincoln into a little bit of a groove. We put some time into it. Again, he had gotten better, but still him and I's conversations really revolved around the fact that, Coach, I just don't feel comfortable doing this, at full speed live. I don't have confidence in it. Okay, well, back on the shelf it goes. And as I eval'd Valpo, one of the things that I kept circling back to in my mind was, again, people were so afraid of the two big kids. They never challenged them. And I knew, again, the philosophy of if you can't block them, don't block them. We had to find a way to do that. And I'm watching film, and in my mind, I'm like, if we can just get Charlie one-on-one with one of these defensive backs, somehow it's going to be a huge win for us. And we've got to come after these defensive ends. And I'm watching film, and in the back of my head, I'm like, speed option, man, they can't do anything about it. And I'm like, we can't run speed option. It's like, okay, watch some more film. Oh, my God, if we would run speed option from this set, they can't defend it. Well, Lincoln doesn't like to do it. Just stop thinking about it. So I kind of, as they're watching film, I'm like, you know what? Why can't we just do a quote-unquote wildcat package here? Eric takes quarterback reps throughout the week anyway because he's the backup. We'll have a wildcat package. They've never seen it. They haven't seen us run speed option before. They're not going to know why Eric's back there. He's on the depth chart as a backup quarterback anyway. And I pretty much took the knowledge I had of the kids and what they did well and got into a play that I thought was going to be really successful for us. And we essentially just called a wildcat package, and Eric would come into quarterback and Lincoln would go to X. And we knew that we couldn't just run speed option with Eric. So throughout the week, he took a few more quarterback reps than normal. And so we pretty much worked with Eric on speed option, the inside zone stuff, and then really our sprint out and boot game. I wasn't going to make him do a lot of stuff down the field. And that was a little bit of what he had struggled with anyway. So it was just going to be a little bit of a niche fit for him where we could get exactly what I wanted out of just manipulating personnel, and I thought it would pay off for us. So and it kept Lincoln in his comfort zone. And so throughout the week, we would randomly signal wildcat in. They'd have to adjust and move, and then we'd practice these things. And Eric did a spectacular job throughout the week of all that. And again, that's part of our kids. Lincoln's a starting quarterback and wins the job. And I'm telling him, look, you're really not very good at executing this, and that, and this is a good play for us. I'm going to take you essentially out of the equation and put you over here, and you're just going to do nothing, And some quarterbacks, what do you mean? I'm the quarterback. Well, our kids aren't like that. And he was great about it. And him and Eric had always worked together really well, but this was just something really cool to see. And I'll tell you what, and it's not like when I came up with this plan, I thought, oh man, we better have an emergency plan in here. And you don't think about that stuff, but I'll say this, if we really hadn't almost lucked into that scenario of Eric having to take more quarterback reps this week than normal, we probably don't win this game. And it's not like that was my intention, but he got enough quarterback reps to be efficient and essentially, I mean, kind of allow us to survive, to be honest, and get a win here. I don't think without the time we'd given him that week that we're probably as successful. So it ends up working out in our favor in a major way. But, yeah, he had practiced quarterback a lot that week, and this was a major part of the overarching plan.
This also is the exact same play that we're going to rip an 80-yarder on at the start of the third quarter. You're going to see it a few times between now and then. But speed option to the right is it. So just kind of keep that in your back pocket.
Here, though, we get the two guys blocked that we make the adjustment to. But, yeah that's going to be it.
So now Lincoln's back in.
Yeah. So now we switch back to it and we go with an outside zone here and we miss a block. But that speed option had a lot of promise to it.
Run our little hitch concept here.
Yeah, and I think this one here is where Lincoln gets hurt.
Yep.
It's right here at the end of the first quarter. He gets his ankle stuck underneath this kid as he tackles him. I saw it happen. I knew right away. You can see his right leg doesn't come up when he goes down, and it gets pinned. And he got himself over to the sideline barely. I knew he's a super tough kid. I knew he was in a lot of pain and ended up being a really bad high ankle sprain that he well, we'll talk more about some of that later, but he really just couldn't come. I mean, I've had those before, and those things can put you out for weeks, sometimes even months, depending upon the severity of it. So what a gutsy kid. He comes back in and tries to play with it, but we may have to break this game into quarters. There's a lot going on here.
Well, I'll tell you what, Eric hits an absolute missile here.
Yeah, what a spectacular night for him. The quarterback thing aside, man alive, he was even without the quarterback thing, he really was an MVP of this game. I mean, his punting and all, I mean, boy, what a night. What a night. The quarterback part of it makes it that much more special.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to drive. I mean, you can kind of roll this. They're essentially going to drive this one down here. They're going to hit us on a really nice smash route that we had practiced throughout the week here. They're going to drive the ball down the field on this one, and they're going to hit us on smash. Brody gets his feet kind of twisted up against the Osorio kid, which against that kid, as quick as he is pretty much a death penalty there. You're not going to cover him. So he just gets his feet kind of twisted up a little bit, and they're a good football team. They're going to make a nice drive here. They're going to move the football and tie this thing up 7-7 on that smash route. So,
exact same play right there, 2 in a row.
Yeah. Like I said, they were very similar to us, and that's tough sometimes to know that you're going to play a team that's that disciplined, and they're going to, again, they're going to make you stop them. They're going to make you beat them, essentially. They're not going to do silly things and beat themselves.
A little holding penalty right here.
Or is this their field goal?
No, they score on this one because the field goal's right at the end of the half.
I thought this was the smash route. Yeah, the field goal's late.
Yeah, they're going to get backed up here because of this holding penalty.
Right. That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought they'd throw the smash here coming up.
This is it right here.
Yeah, so he just gives him a really nice jab. Brody's feet get stuck, and that kid's just a good player. I mean, we get beat. A little bit of a technical error, and on a big stage against a good player like that, not going to recover. Kid makes a good throw too.
Yet again, we already talked about it, but we're looking at as we start breaking the film down. Here's the wing, the big 230-pound kid, the wing on offense, I mean. Here's the one defensive end, and here's the other one. So, we're going to try to block it. Felt like we had a better chance on the 7 kid than we did. I tell you what, Richie just absolutely flattens that tight end right there. But We knew this was going to be a tall order as well, and this kid had a really nice night kicking the ball too.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
So our second attempt at this, and we'd kind of almost broke the first one.
We had another good one here. Really good one.
Another good one here, but I always bring this up when I present this in the clinics. It happens to us too. There's Indiana's Mr. Football right there, and we make mistakes too. He shouldn't stop for this. He should go.
Yeah.
And take that last guy there.
Yeah, he had been the cleaner all year, really. Yeah. And had done a great job of it too.
If we're on this, I think we've really got something here. But it happens. That's football. It's a good field position for us here.
Yeah, so we come back out, like I said. I don't know what the status of Lincoln is, but we've got to test him a little bit here. He is heavily taped up. You can see he's not carrying his fakes and stuff out anymore. We're not getting a lot of that, but again, to his credit, I mean, he's a super tough kid. He's running around and scrambling here on this one and trying to get us yards and stuff. So.
Third and long, there's our little sticks play. We talked about that in the Center Grove game. We run that a lot.
Yeah. Again, you've seen us now. We're throwing the ball a lot more than most people are probably accustomed to us doing it. Like I said, we really felt like our passing game was one of our strengths here. And we get this one to, 4th and a millimeter, so we're going to go for this one here.
Double tight end here. Boy, and we get that just barely.
Yeah, if it was a millimeter, we got a millimeter and a half.
Let's go ahead and finish this drive here, and then we'll shut her down for the day.
Yeah. So we'll kind of get, I guess, through what's going to happen here in a second. So again, we're moving the ball well. Things are going fine. Unfortunately, here we're going to have our drive a little bit derailed by a couple of things, and we're going to lose Lincoln here in a second. But you can see it at 11 again, just absolutely screaming down for the mesh point, and right there.
This is when we lose Lincoln, and I'm going to tell you, we are.
Yeah.
This was going to be it right here.
Yep. Yeah, we kind of get a double negative here. We've got him set up for one of our home run balls. Riker falls over, and because of him falling over as the primary read, Lincoln chokes it down and takes off, and his high ankle sprain just finally gives. He hits his foot just the right way, and it pretty much ends his night here. So, I think that this drive is probably like you said, is a good place to stop here, and we'll pick up as it goes on. But at this point, again, as a coach, kind of the inside the headset piece of this here, one thing I learned from my first year when Columbus East just absolutely pummeled us down there in the semi-state game, and I took a lot of feedback from the players as I kept trying to grow as a coach, and I think I've learned a tremendous amount since. There's a lot of intensity that I have on a Friday night in a lot of different ways, and one thing that I can't ever lose sight of is at the end of the day, everybody's looking to me as the head coach, and that's coaches and that's players. And when Lincoln goes down, there's a lot of people, in my opinion, that would start to panic as a coach, and that worry and that expression on your face is something that your kids are going to pick up on. And I always have a plan as part of the amount of hours I spend on a week that I just talked about. I always have plans for those scenarios, or I've talked to the coaches about their plans for certain scenarios. I've got a lot of stuff mapped out in my head where if X happens, then we do this. If Y happens, then we do this. And this, I wasn't trying to be, unsympathetic at the time, but the boys needed a strong response to this. You know, our quarterback just went down, and no one knows really what had happened or why, because a lot of our kids are playing both ways on the field. So some of them didn't even know he got hurt the first time. And now all of a sudden he just collapses. And so, you know, we get an injury timeout essentially to get him off of the field. And I go out there and go get him, and Heather, our trainer, comes out and we get him off the field and stuff, and he kind of hobbles his way over. And then I pretty much let him go and went immediately to the huddle and really just kind of gave them a stern, you know, guys, we're going to be fine. Eric's practiced all week. We're good to go. We'll see what Lincoln's deal is, but we need to finish this drive. Let's get moving, you know, and it wasn't trying to be unsympathetic, but I had a plan. The kids needed to feel that I had confidence in the situation. I had to exude that confidence. You can lose your kids in a hurry when they look at their leader and the leader doesn't have answers, you know, or the leader looks unsure or panicked. That's a problem. So that's something that I think I've gotten better at as a coach as the years have gone on, and preparedness and stuff has improved and all those things. But, it's a football game, and we've just lost our quarterback. And if I sit there and pout about it, well, then the kids are going to be able to pout about it too. I gave them an excuse to feel sorry for themselves. And, woe are the Dragons. Our quarterback just went down. We don't make excuses for ourselves. And I wasn't going to give them an excuse at the time either. We had an answer, and we're going to move on. And we end up finishing this drive off here with points, which is huge, and do a great job. Eric does a wonderful job of leading us down the field, which you've been watching as I've been talking. And now the thought process, again, like all the things we've talked about this game, the amount that goes into this, now the process is, okay, damage control. How bad is Lincoln hurt? I need to get that information from the doctors and the trainers. Is he able to ever come back into the game based upon that injury? Don't know that yet. Need to get that information from the trainers. So in my head, those things are going on. All right, now, where do we go from here? Okay, Eric is the starting X receiver. We had a plan for that. I've got to talk to you about getting our new rotation set up at wide receiver, and then I've got to manage that with you because those guys all also play defensive back. And I know this is going to be a 4-quarter game, so we've got to monitor their gas tanks then. Next, what can Eric execute well offensively that we can do to move the ball and win this game? Because at the end of the day, we still got to win. No one's going to care our quarterback got hurt. It doesn't matter. No one feels sorry for us. So we need to find a way to win. Okay, as a play caller, what are the things that Eric can do well? What did he execute well throughout the week? I've got to recall that. I've got to talk to him about that. Where's his confidence level at in those things? I've got to trim my play calling list down to things that only Eric can do well and has confidence in. If it's something that I like because Lincoln was good at it, it's out the door. Because if Eric doesn't like it and Eric can't do it, I can't call it. So there are a lot of things that have to start going on inside of a play caller's head and my head as a head coach here, where the kids are going to need information and they're going to need that to come out in a clear manner. I have to express that to them, and as soon as I can give them answers to those questions, the sooner we can move forward and keep playing ball. So there is a lot that has to go into that. And again, the more panic you show and the longer it takes you to come up with solutions to problems, the more unsure you are in the decision-making that you're about to do, the worse off it is for your team. And I do think that as a staff, our response to this overall is really what made this game, because it filtered down to our kids, and our kids just went out and kept playing. So that was really great to see. But again, it's not as simple as like, oh, put the backup quarterback in. That is our starting X, our backup defensive back, a backup linebacker, our punter. We're juggling a lot of stuff because one kid just went down. So, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Last play here we'll do a little bit of redemption here for Alex. This is almost the same yard line and the same end as the 2018 game where he just grazes the left upright. And he was able to knock this one through to give us a 10-7 lead. Probably, I don't know, probably 8.5 to go in the quarter by now.
Yeah.
So nice little play for him there. We'll stop it there, and we'll kind of break this down into quarters and instead of halves like we usually do. Like you said, there's a lot to get to there. So, I know, like you talked about, losing the quarterback's never easy, but the fact that Eric got us right down there to the 4-yard line, I think gave me some confidence on how we were going to be going forward from that point.
Yeah, there are so many things. Like I said, you almost forget until you start talking about it. There are so many things that go into this game, and really, I think we get to halftime here in a second. The conversations between the coaches and I are again one of the more interesting parts of this game here. And I think, again, as a head coach, something that I'm really proud of, that we can all have an open line of communication and trust, and that I value people's opinion, because we're going to have a lot of differing opinions here in about 8 minutes when we get inside to the locker room and start walking off the field in regards to what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And, again, I think that clarity from coaches that can then be conveyed down to your players is so important. And that's one thing, for those who are aspiring head coaches or head coaches out there, when we come to what the final decision is, all I ever ask of my staff is that we present a unified front. Whether I decide to do what Coach A has recommended and Coach B maybe didn't recommend, well, when I make the decision is going to be final, and Coach A and Coach B, regardless of what their stance was, both are going to have to agree to that and then convey that to the kids, whether they really liked it or not. And we have a lot of discussion in private and then, out in the hallway outside the locker room about where we're going to go from here and what we can do. And I'll talk more about that later. But as we get into this half, a lot of this is, again, let's survive these final 8 minutes here and let's get our kids back into a little bit of a comfort zone where we can start getting some things adjusted and done and kind of handle this situation. And it's a great half of football. I mean, it really is. It's what a state championship should be. So, blessed to be part of a game that's of this caliber, and then what's going to be of this quality. So, there's a lot of real good nuggets, I think, in this game for people to pick things up. So,
sure. Well, we're going to be off tomorrow, so we'll pick this up on Monday with the second quarter of the 2019 state championship game. So I look forward to that, and like you said, I think a lot of good info in here, and look forward to continuing to move through the game. So as always, you have questions or you want to see something, or I know the coaches out there, if you want some more clips, or you want to talk or whatever, send us a message. We love doing this stuff. Especially during this time when we're kind of stuck at home. So always reach out to either Coach Ralph or I on Twitter or privately or whatever, and we'd love to help. So, Coach, thanks, and
thank you.
and we'll see you on Monday morning.
Sounds good.